Welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the expansion of the Trump administration's steel tariffs. The United States says refrigerators, washing machines, and other items made with steel parts will soon be subject to new tariffs. This is said to be a blow to South Korean firms that make those products. President Lee Jae-myung sits down with South Korea's top business leaders for the first time, including the heads of Samsung and Hyundai Motor. This comes as the new president earlier vowed to focus on economic recovery. An Air India plane carrying 242 passengers bound for London crashed in India shortly after takeoff. More than 240 people have been killed, with one British man believed to be the sole survivor of the disaster. We start in the U.S., where the government has announced plans to expand tariffs on products made with steel, including refrigerators. President Trump also warned that he may soon raise tariffs on foreign cars to have more automakers build plants in America. Our Park Eun-woo starts us off.
More ramping up of tariffs on foreign goods by the Trump administration. On Thursday, the U.S. Department of Commerce announced that tariffs on steel and its derivative products will be expanded to cover 8 more items starting later this month. Those items include refrigerators, washing machines, dishwashers, ovens, and more. This means the 50% tariff, which went into effect in early June, is now set to be applied to those products for the value of the steel content in each product. South Korean products are also expected to be affected, with companies like Samsung and LG Electronics manufacturing and exporting a wide range of home appliances to the U.S. from South Korea and Mexico, though some products are made in the USA. Trump also hinted at raising tariffs on foreign-made automobiles on Thursday to boost the U.S. auto industry.
But to further defend our auto workers, I impose this 25% tariff on all foreign automobiles and investment in American manufacturing and auto manufacturing. I might go up with that tariff in the not-too-distant future. The higher you go, the more likely it is they build a plant here.
The U.S. president was speaking at a White House event where he also cited investment plans from automakers, including General Motors, crediting his tariffs for those announcements. South Korean cars already impacted by U.S. tariffs are also set to be affected. Park Eun-woo, Arirang News.
U.S. and China agreed to a framework to ease tariff and trade tensions following 2 days of intensive talks in London this week. For more on the significance behind this agreement and what lies ahead for the world's 2 largest economies, we're joined by Jeff Moon, president of China Moon Strategies and former assistant U.S. Trade Representative for China. Thanks for joining us this morning.
My pleasure.
So after talks in London, the U.S. and China agreed on a trade framework. Does this mean both sides got what they wanted? And what is your overall assessment on their meeting?
My overall assessment's positive. We needed to resolve the rare earths elements issues, but the London agreement really is just a reset to the prior agreement in Geneva. On May the 12th, the U.S. and China agreed in Geneva to reduce tariffs for a 3-month negotiating period that expires on August the 12th. Now that we've spent one of those months discussing this subsidiary matter of rare earths, it's really time for us to get back to the main issues in the U.S.-China trade dispute. The core issues that have really been festering for decades are subsidies and other non-tariff barriers. Those issues can't be resolved in 2 months, but the U.S. and China can reach a preliminary deal that can lead to further talks. I think that both sides now need to focus on the main agenda and redouble their efforts to see what progress they can make.
Right, and President Trump declared the trade war with China done, and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said tariffs on China will remain fixed at the current 55% rate. So do you see this as a sustainable agreement?
The trade war is done only in the sense that the London Agreement removed rare earth elements as an obstacle to addressing the major issues in the U.S.-China trade dispute. So this is the end of the beginning of the negotiations and nothing more. As for the 55% tariff rate, that tariff level is not sustainable, and it's only a matter of time before Trump reduces it. Only companies with high margins can sustain a tariff rate of 55%. The firms that are the most vulnerable are small and medium-sized enterprises and other companies that operate on very slim margins. So my assumption is that the current reciprocal tariff negotiations that Trump has initiated with all countries will result in a lowering of tariffs generally, and I hope that comes sooner rather than later.
All right, and do you expect the deal to at least ease concerns among American consumers and businesses? Could it help revive the economy in any way?
The London deal is a good sign that negotiations are moving in the right direction, but we have a long way to go before consumers and businesses can stop worrying. The biggest concern is the instability that Trump has caused. Consumers and businesses are reluctant to make purchases or investments because it's impossible to predict what tariffs or other measures Trump is going to announce in the coming days, weeks, or even years. Business craves a stable commercial environment. And without that, the economy really won't revive to the full extent until Trump restores predictability to the market.
Right, and you just said it's just the end of the beginning. What can we expect to happen next? Will we be able to see the two countries announce some progress on trade issues other than rare earth export controls?
I predict that now that negotiations on other issues are getting underway, that the U.S. and China will agree on a preliminary deal before the August 12th deadline. We're short on time, so the terms will include issues that are relatively easy to agree on or things that the countries want to do anyway. And the format will probably be similar to the recent US-UK agreement, which was a 5-page term sheet with many terms still pending negotiation. I think the US-China agreement will probably address things like fentanyl cooperation, Chinese purchases of American goods, and selected, narrow, probably industrial policy issues. But none of that is going to resolve the larger industrial policy issues that really have bedeviled Chinese and US relations for the last 30 years. As for future negotiations, I agree with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who said recently that it will take years to really reach a comprehensive agreement between the U.S. and China.
All right, and with the July deadline approaching, Trump also says he's willing to extend the 90-day pause on reciprocal tariffs, but does not believe it will be necessary. So do you think the Trump administration might extend the pause for trading partners like South Korea?
I think a lot of extensions will be necessary because, frankly, the administration doesn't even have the personnel necessary to negotiate the agreements he said he wants to talk about. And I think that Trump probably had South Korea in mind when he talked about a possible extension of the 90-day pause for certain countries. South Korean negotiators have visited Washington various times in recent months, and all accounts are that they've been negotiating in good faith. The fact that the Korea-U.S. trade agreement is still in place has reduced the number of potential areas of friction or issues for negotiation. And in addition, I noticed that South Korea recently appointed a new trade minister who's very knowledgeable and highly respected in Washington. And I expect that he will be very helpful in guiding the negotiations to a good result on behalf of South Korea.
All right, well, I guess we'll have to see how it goes. I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for your insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And President Lee Jae-myung is holding his first meeting with the nation's top business leaders on Friday. According to the top office, the meeting, underway from 10 a.m. at the Yongsan Presidential Office, is being attended by the heads of South Korea's 6 major business organizations, including the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry, as well as 5 leading conglomerates, Samsung, SK, Hyundai Motor, LG, and Lotte. While no details have been released on the agenda, President Lee promised in his inauguration address to begin his term by focusing on economic recovery and improving people's livelihoods. And the president also continues to engage with his foreign counterparts, holding phone calls with the leaders of Australia and Vietnam. Our presidential office correspondent Song Yoo-jin reports.
It was a busy day of diplomacy for President Lee Jae-myung on Thursday, holding phone calls with the leaders of 2 of South Korea's comprehensive strategic partners. In the afternoon, President Lee spoke with Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. According to the presidential office, the pledge to strengthen cooperation in national defense, clean energy, and critical minerals, building on the long-standing trust and solidarity forged since Australia's participation in the Korean War in the 1950s. They also discussed working together to promote peace on the Korean Peninsula and to achieve meaningful progress on the North Korean nuclear issue. Cooperation for the successful hosting of the 2025 APEC summit in Gyeongju City was mentioned as well, as both countries are founding members of the regional forum. Both sides agreed to hold in-person talks to discuss concrete ways. Earlier in the day, the South Korean leader spoke with Vietnamese President Luong Quoc. Similarly, their focus was on further developing their partnership.
The two leaders agreed to expand and deepen bilateral cooperation in strategic sectors such as high-speed rail and nuclear energy.
President Lee requested Vietnam's continued interest and support for Korean companies operating there, to which President Quoc responded positively. Quoc also invited Lee to Vietnam, to which he said he looks forward to in-depth discussions to strengthen bilateral ties during his visit. So these are President Lee's fifth and sixth phone conversations with world leaders since taking office last Wednesday. His diplomatic efforts continue ahead of next week's G7 summit in Canada, where he's expected to meet several of the leaders he spoke to face-to-face. 송유진, Arirang News.
President Lee visited a local flood control center ahead of the upcoming rainy season, putting emphasis on safety. At the same time, the new leader, who's just in his second week in office, has been bolstering communication with Parliament and the press throughout the week. Our senior top office correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports.
Appearing in a yellow civil defense uniform, South Korea's new president was at a flood control center of the Hangang River in Seoul on Thursday to check readiness as the nation braces for the summer rainy season.
우리 국민들의 생명과 안전, 재산의 피해를 막는 것이 가장 중요하다. 잘 먹고 잘 사는 문제, 민생의 문제도 중요하지만 그것보다 가장 중요한 일은 국민들의 생명과 안전을 지키는 일이라는.
Present at the meeting were related officials, where Lee called for an overhaul of flood-prone areas, as well as the flood warning system. He went on to emphasize the responsibility of the officials in charge of public safety, as he vowed to better empower them and improve compensation. Also in line with this, President Lee Jae-myung suddenly stopped by the alleyway in Seoul's Itaewon neighborhood, where the disastrous crowd crush claimed the lives of more than 150 people around 3 years ago. He laid flowers and observed a moment of silence at Memorial Alley. On his way back to the office, he spoke with nearby merchants, asking them how their businesses were doing. Other than focusing on people's livelihoods during his second week in office, the new president has made a move to bolster communication with Parliament. Lee's Secretary for Political Affairs, Woo Sang-ho, paid a visit to the National Assembly for the third straight day on Thursday to meet the leadership of political parties, underscoring the need for cooperation across the aisle. It's taken as the president demonstrating his recognition of them as partners in charge of state affairs. Also conspicuous to the press corps covering the president was Lee unexpectedly stopping by at a cafeteria at the top office to have lunch and coffee with reporters in a casual setting for 3 days in a row this week. It's widely seen as a move to bolster communication with the press at the early stage of his presidency. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
Investigations are underway after an Air India passenger plane headed to London with 242 people on board crashed shortly after takeoff, with only one survivor. The plane crashed into a medical college in the city of Ahmedabad, causing further casualties. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
Air India says 241 out of 242 people on board a London-bound plane that crashed on Thursday were killed in what is thought to be one of India's worst airline disasters in decades. The Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner crashed in the northwestern city of Ahmedabad shortly after takeoff. According to reports, 169 Indian nationals, 53 British nationals, 7 Portuguese, and 1 Canadian national were among the passengers on board. However, one passenger, a British national, miraculously survived the crash and was sent to a nearby hospital for treatment. According to authorities, the lone survivor walked away after the accident and escaped the site without life-threatening injuries. And the death toll is expected to rise as the aircraft crashed into a residential area attached to BJ Medical College, with part of the plane falling on a dining facility. According to local authorities, at least 5 medical students were killed on the ground and dozens of others were injured. It's still unclear what caused the crash. However, video footage shows the plane with its nose pointed upward as it sinks lower toward the ground before the crash. An investigation is also underway to determine the exact cause. With 53 British nationals on board the ill-fated flight, the UK government has launched a crisis response team and has dispatched an investigation team to India. It's also working closely with Indian authorities to find the cause of the crash and provide support to affected families. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And Israel launched preemptive strikes against Iran early Friday, according to Israel's defense minister. Israel also says it has declared a state of emergency, with retaliatory missile and drone attacks from Iran expected. Iran's state-run media also reported that explosions were heard in the northeast of Tehran on Friday. And according to Reuters, 2 U.S. officials, speaking on condition of anonymity, have said that the U.S. was not involved in the operation. And Russia is set to create a dedicated military branch for unmanned systems, as both Russia and Ukraine have been increasing the use of drones for strike missions and surveillance. During a meeting on Thursday, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced that his military will include a separate drone unit. According to Putin, Russia has accumulated a great deal of experience to create such a branch, adding that the unit will include personal training, manufacturing, and deployment of modern equipment. The move also comes as Ukraine formed its own unmanned systems forces last year. The USF has since launched hundreds of deep strikes into Russian territory in the ongoing war. Meanwhile, North Korea held a second launch ceremony Thursday for a 5,000-ton warship, the same vessel that partially capsized during its debut last month. State media says the destroyer, now named Gangon, after an anti-Japanese resistance figure, was rolled out again Thursday from the Lajin shipyard following full repairs. Leader Kim Jong-un attended the ceremony alongside his daughter, Chue. According to North Korean media, he praised workers for restoring the vessel, one he personally watched tip over last month. At the time, he ordered those responsible punished and called for repairs to be completed by the end of June. And for those of you here in Seoul who have yet to make weekend plans, do consider a visit to an exhibition that shares the works of a renowned British children's author, Anthony Browne, whose stories continue to delight readers of all ages. Our Cha Young-kyung has more.
The British author and illustrator Anthony Browne has dedicated his work A Boy, His Dog and the Sea to his late brother. The work illustrates the village where the artist is currently living. Browne has often shown the notion of opposites, such as big and small, by, for example, showing various primates in Big Gorilla, a book of opposites. He has also shared a warm look at the relationship between a grandfather and grandchild through My Granddad. Browne, who is 78, has been illustrating daily life in his new picture books. Anthony Browne leads us step into a world of imagination and warmth for readers through the beautiful picture books with familiar characters and pastel colors.
Hidden clues and whimsical details in his illustrations invite visitors to discover references to famous artwork. The essence of Browne's storytelling is the combination of observation, dialogue, and imagination.
Browne stories explore a wide range of themes resonating with readers of all ages. Family members can enjoy his original artwork, including his latest unpublished creations.
It was so much fun to see the pictures that I had already seen from his book. It seemed like the characters came to life.
Anthony Browne exhibition, a master of the storytelling, will be showcased at Hangaram Art Museum Gallery 3 and 4 of Seoul Arts Center until the end of September. 차윤경, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Choi Ji-hee, and this is The World Now. The International Atomic Energy Agency has, for the first time in nearly 2 decades, formally declared Iran in breach of its nuclear non-proliferation obligations by approving a related resolution. On Thursday, the United Nations nuclear watchdog adopted a resolution with 19 in favor and 11 abstentions, finding Iran non-compliant with its safeguards since 2019. A May 31st report by the agency identified uranium traces at 4 previously undeclared sites, concluding 3 were tied to a covert nuclear program carried out into the early 2000s. In response, Iran's Foreign Ministry and National Atomic Energy Agency announced the country will build a new uranium enrichment facility in a secure location and condemned the IAEA's resolution, saying it completely called into question the credibility and prestige of the nuclear watchdog. The recent vote comes as Oman announced on Thursday that the United States and Iran will hold a 6th round of talks over Tehran's nuclear program on Sunday. Germany pledged more military aid to Ukraine, in addition to a joint production of long-range missiles and drones during military aid talks with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. According to German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius, during his visit to Kyiv on Thursday, Germany has provided $8.1 billion worth of military aid this year, with an additional $2.2 billion awaiting parliamentary approval. The new aid package includes the delivery of new IRIS-T air defense systems under a 3-year supply plan. Talks also included the joint production of long-range cruise missiles, drones, and rockets, exchanging funding for technical expertise. While Kyiv pushed for long-range Taurus cruise missiles, Berlin is not planning to supply them at this time. Pistorius emphasized Germany's role as Ukraine's largest European military backer and said enhanced support aims to strengthen Ukrainian deterrence and negotiating leverage ahead of any future peace talks. The United Nations said Thursday that Israel's military operations have severed Gaza's last functional internet cable, triggering a full digital blackout and halting humanitarian operations and vital services in the region. According to Deputy UN spokesperson Farhan Haq, there is a full internet blackout and mobile networks are barely functioning. Communications across Gaza, life-saving aid, and coordination between relief organizations have been paralyzed as a result, posing a grave danger to civilians as they cannot access life-saving support. A zoo in the German city of Kronberg near Frankfurt welcomed a 2-week-old African elephant, Kaya, on Thursday. Kaya, born 16 days ago, is the first baby elephant to be born in 57 years at the Opel Zoo. Meanwhile, Cologne Zoo also welcomed visitors with a group of elephants enjoying the warm summer heat, among which was a young elephant calf, Taro, who was born in March. The zoo also revealed the birth of 2 rare horses, a female and a male of the rare Przewalski species.
Jeju Island saw its first monsoon rains of the summer yesterday, a week earlier than average. And this morning, Jeollado regions are seeing rain, which will gradually expand to the rest of the country. Then it will be a rainy Saturday nationwide. Intense rainfall is expected tonight and tomorrow morning, especially in the south. And until tomorrow, Jeju's mountainous areas could see over 250 millimeters of downpours. The south coast and regions around Jirishan Mountain can expect 100 120 millimeters. Meanwhile, central and northern areas, including here in the capital, can expect 5 to 20 millimeters. Rain and cloudy skies will bring heat relief to the southern regions, falling into the mid-20s, but here in the capital will be as hot as yesterday, topping out at 30 degrees Celsius. Rain will make its comeback over the weekend across the entire country. So those planning to travel to the southern parts of Korea this weekend, especially to Jeju, beware of heavy rain and stay safe.
Now that's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.